Welcome to my very first YouTube live stream. Anyone who is coming here from any of my other platforms, Instagram, Facebook, will have seen my other live streams, just not my face. So this is my first time showing my face on YouTube or on any of my Etsy shop social medias. Welcome. I'm really glad to have you here. Today, we'll do a Q&A if anyone asks any questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit and chat while I work on a project that I'm working on. So, try not to lose my crochet hook. So, today I'm working on a corner-to-corner blanket, which is the blanket that is pictured in the thumbnail for this live stream. So, this is what I'm working on. I'm just over halfway done. This is a test stitch for my good friend over at the Etsy shop, Knotted Up in String. Her name's Haley, and she's a very good friend of mine, and so I'm working on this for her. She almost exclusively designs patterns for corner-to-corner blankets, and they're all very, very cute. And so she let me pick one to work on. Now you get a dog cameo. Come here, buddy. Come on. So this is Winston. Hi, buddy. He really likes to cuddle with me and try to help as I'm stitching. Hi, buddy. So hopefully he'll be here through the whole video so he's not wandering back and forth across my lap while I'm trying to work. But yeah, I'm glad you're here. Feel free to join me in the chat and post comments, ask questions, whatever you like. I'm going to adjust the camera so that way you can actually see what I'm working on. I have the blanket backwards. So what are you guys all working on today? For me, it's fairly early in the morning. I mean, if you call 8 a.m. early. There we go. Okay, I had it right the first time. You guys have anything big going on today? For me, my husband and I spent last night and this morning getting ready for some exterminators coming to our house. We've recently had an infestation of brown recluse spiders and ants. Thousands and thousands of ants. No matter what I do, no matter how much I clean, there's just thousands of ants. So the exterminator is coming today and is going to spray all around our house, and I am very, very excited about it. But we had to, everywhere where we want them to spray, we had to move everything away from like the walls or those areas. So that's what we spent last night, this morning doing, was moving furniture around and taking down curtains and getting a spasm in my arm. It really hurts. So that's the hecticness of our morning. I'd love to hear what you guys are up to, what you guys like to work on. Do any of you have any crafts that you really enjoy? For me, it tends to be fiber arts, which are like crocheting, embroidery. I'm currently working on some embroidery right here. I do embroidery, crochet, knitting, tatting. Tatting is a lace. If you've seen my summer lace series, that's tatted lace. If you haven't seen my my summer lace series. You should go find it. I've been posting about it on Instagram, and the posts should all be copying over to my Facebook page. And then the listings are on my Etsy page. So all of my links, all of my social medias are all called Old School and Eclectic. Just like this YouTube channel. On this channel, I added the word crafts at the end, so it'd be a little more descriptive of what it is that I do and what my channel is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I wonder if I can link. I just had a thought that I should link Knotted Up in Strings Etsy page in the comment or in the video description. It's so different actually doing a live stream versus watching a live stream. So I'm like thinking about all the live streams that I like to watch and thinking about the different comments and different accessibility things that other streamers that I like do. Like I really, I watch a lot of Sophia Nygaard. I watch her weekly live streams, though not always when it's live. I watch OSP, Overly Sarcastic Productions, their live streams and their videos. So that's Red and Blue. I like to watch their live streams. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I'm just thinking about stuff that they tend to do on their streams. Honestly, it's very comforting watching their streams. I don't know if any of you guys ever watch Sophia or OSP. But things always go wrong on their streams. Nothing is ever quite perfect, which is just really comforting. And I still love their content, so it doesn't matter that they're struggling. And so for me, it means that even if I struggle, like I did where this live stream right here isn't the original link that I created. Turns out the original link I created was only accessible if, for me as the creator, if I had special streaming software, and I don't. So that made things difficult. So I had to redo it so that way I could stream via my webcam rather than through software that I don't have. Do any of you have, my viewers, do any of you have YouTube channels or Etsy shops? I'd love to hear about them. if you've been following my Instagram and or my Facebook page, you'll have seen some previous posts about this blanket. And all of this yarn is leading down to a box that's on the floor with a bunch of balls of yarn in it. Just clothespins with yarn. And it is a mess. And the yarn is starting to get knotted, though I am down to almost half the thread, the number of balls of yarn than I had last week. This pattern has many, many colors, and each color section, each block of color needs its own ball of yarn, which means that with this particular pattern, I ended up with 29 at the most. Haley says it's your friendly neighborhood stalker friend, Haley, so you already know the answer. That the color changes are real? So this Haley that's in the comments, she's the one who designed this pattern. She's the one who owns Knotted Up in String on Etsy. I'm not 100% sure what she's referring to, but as I was saying, there's a huge knot of yarn. Like, this looks neat right now, but it's a mess. But yeah, the max number of balls of yarn at one time on this blanket is 29, which is a lot. But also, I don't know if I've ever said this, but this is my very first ever corner-to-corner blanket. I've never made one before. I almost did a corner-to-corner for... So corner-to-corner is the pattern. Like this, that's the pattern, the style of crochet of this blanket. It's also called a graphghan because it's a grid. It's kind of a graph. Brain fart. So this is my very first one. Sorry, I'm retracing my steps of thought. This is my very first corner-to-corner blanket. I almost did one for my temperature blanket. But at that point, I had never done a corner-to-corner before. And I didn't feel like doing it at the time that I started my temperature blanket. Instead, I did the pattern, I think it's called Navajo Diamond. I think that's what the pattern itself is called. And if you've been following my Instagram or my Facebook, you'll have seen that I finished that temperature blanket about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And that's this. A very pretty blanket. So I was actually got a whole bunch of questions last night. Rebecca wants me to show the progress of this one, I assume. I mean, I can't show a whole lot just because there's the knot. There's the knot of thread right there. But that's the cherry tree in the picture. Sorry, I'm losing my spot. So the Rebecca that's in the chat, that's my little sister. She's asking for my nieces and nephews to be able to see the progress. And then there's the pagoda. And I'm currently working on Mount Fuji. So this is the mountain, that's the snow. And I think No. So there's like a spire at the top of the pagoda. I think I have like 1 or 2 more blocks left of that. But yeah, so I'm just about done with the pagoda. I'm working on the mountain. And I have like 2 more pink blocks on the tree. And then I'll just be working on the sky and the mountain. But so we're going to go back over the temperature blanket for a second. So I was receiving some questions last night about my temperature blanket. So this is the Navajo diamond pattern. Ultimately, you can do just about anything with this pattern that you want. For those of you who know crochet, this is done on a single crochet, going from right to left, like normal crochet. But rather than turning your work at the end, you cut it, which is where the fringe comes from. You cut it, and then you go back to the beginning and you start again. So you're always working with the same side of your fabric looking at you, and then you always work in the back loop. And then these ridges are just double crochets gone down a row. So like this dark one right here, you can see how it hooks into this row that's like 2 rows down. So that's all it is. And you can do whatever pattern you want. I did it in a set of 10, where it's 10 rows to the middle, 10 rows up, 10 rows wide. Actually, I guess it'd be 10 rows and then 10 rows. But it was in 10s. And I actually copied this off of a blanket my husband already has. Because then I knew what the final size would be. Unfortunately, his is apparently stretched. Like, my gauge matched perfectly. I think I did like 2 different swatches to try and get the gauge correct. And so my gauge is correct, but I'm guessing that his blanket is stretched out because mine ended up much more square. I'm glad the little kids like my blankets. Unfortunately, it isn't really feasible to sell blankets like this because each blanket would cost like $200, if not more, because otherwise you're not being paid for your time, and it's unfeasible. However, maybe I could like put together a pattern for this. I'm glad you like it too, Haley. I've had a lot of people gush about how much they love this blanket and how much they love the colors. And I really appreciate that other people like it too. I'm very proud of it. I really like the colors. I literally, when I was trying to find the colors, I literally just went to Hobby Lobby and detour here. My niece that is watching, I love you too, and I miss you too. I don't know when I'll come and visit again. But so, getting my colors for the temperature blanket, I literally just went to Hobby Lobby and started scanning through their yarn, finding what was, which ones were soft and which ones had like an ombre color scheme that I liked. And that's literally how I found those. Was just, I'm at the end of this string and I'm trying to use it up. That's how I found my colors. If you go to once again, go to my Instagram page. I post all sorts of stuff. But the brand of yarn, shoot. I'm going to move the camera here for just a sec. Since I'm all out of the gray, I usually have a bunch of balls of yarn in this box right here, prepped, but I don't for this color. So I need to make a new ball of yarn, except the bag that has all my skeins of yarn is over there. Like I was saying about watching other people's live streams and finding them comforting, there's always just a little bit of chaos. When it comes to live streams, there's always going to be a little bit of chaos, always going to be something that you forget. And for me, today, it was my bag with all my yarn in it. So, back to the temperature blanket again. The brand of yarn that I ended up choosing was called Yarn Bee Soft and Sleek. They're really small skeins of yarn, but I really liked them. And since I was only using a small amount, like half of a skein of each color, for the most part, I had a couple colors where I was using like a skein and a half. But because I wasn't using super large quantities of every color for the most part, the smaller skeins were perfectly fine. So these balls of yarn, like the one that I'm winding right now, this is what all of my strings are attached to down in the box that's down there. Because having multiple skeins of yarn of like the same color is just super wasteful. Super wasteful. It would be a bigger mess. Really, really hard to keep organized, especially if I were to try and wrangle 29 skeins of yarn at the same time. Like, that just isn't feasible. So instead, I wind balls of yarn. And people who do corner to corner blankets, specifically like Grafghan style, where it's an image on the blanket, have many different ways that they manage their yarn. They're usually some sort of clip or clothespin or clamp is usually what's used to ball up the yarn on, because then you can like grab the end of the yarn with that and it's not going to unravel. And then there are people who will just like clip it onto the edge of their blanket. I don't do that because I don't like the weight that it adds to it. And having that extra weight would make me annoyed and frustrated, and I wouldn't want to work on it. So I don't. Haley says that yarn wrangling should be an Olympic sport. It definitely can be, especially yarn barf. If those of you who are not familiar with yarn crafts, yarn barf is something that happens when you're trying to get yarn out of your skein. So when you're pulling from a skein, this is a fairly used skein, but there's two locations where you can get yarn from. You can get it from the outside, which is this end right here, which unwraps it from the outside layers. But then there's the internal one, which is the center. It's called the center pull. As you can see, it's coming from the center of the ball of yarn. And the benefit of doing the center pull is you can just lay your skein down and just pull on it, and it's not going to go anywhere. And that's really, really nice. Unfortunately, for the vast majority of the time, you have to go fishing like inside the ball of yarn to try and find the end. And usually you end up grabbing just kind of a clump, like trying to find it. You grab a little piece of yarn, you pull on it, and just like the entire heart of the ball or the skein of yarn comes out. And then you just have like this mess of yarn. And that, my friends, is yarn barf. And it is the bane of every fiber artist. It is awful. It makes a mess. It's not nice. So, usually, the one good thing about yarn barf is that because it's technically been wound neatly, even though it's a mess when you pull it out, it's not usually knotted up. So that's nice. But it's still a mess. And it's still very frustrating. But like I said, at least it's not knotted up most of the time. Anybody have any other questions for me? Or any other topics you think I should talk about? I'm trying to figure out how to describe doing a corner-to-corner blanket. So there is the basic stitch for the corner-to-corner, which is where you are forming a block. That's what this is. This right here, that's a block. So when you're like seeing a pattern for a corner-to-corner blanket, that would be one. Like that's one part of the pattern. And you kind of work in a zigzag. It's a corner-to-corner because you're working diagonally from one corner to the other corner. So you got kind of the zigzag, so you're kind of stair-stepping it up. Okay? And each of these blocks consists of a slip stitch, 2 chain stitches, 2 or 3 chain stitches, depending upon how you like it to look. And then 3 double crochets, American double crochets. But that's literally it. I don't know how else to describe it. So you slip stitch it in the corner of the next stair. And then you chain either 2 or 3. I like to do 2. And then there's this other stitch. So there's the 3 double crochets from the previous row turned 90 degrees. And then I work my double crochets into that around around that double crochet. Huh. The one stitch I chose to show you as my example was actually missing a stitch because it should have had 4. It should have had the chain and then 3, but it only had the chain and 2. So I actually messed up that square. Huh. Oh well. on Facebook, on my Facebook page, I have posted about my pumpkins collection, asking if people think that I should bring it back. I originally took it down because there was no interest in it. No one was buying it. No one was really looking at any of the products, and so I took them all down. I have a whole bunch of different fall items, mostly decor items made from crocheted and knit little pumpkins. I have little tiny ones, little amigurumi ones, and then I have bigger ones that are like 3 or 4 inches that fit in your hand that I make like wreaths and garlands out of. And they're very cute, but I didn't get any interest in them when I first posted them, so I took them down. And so if you guys could go to my Facebook page and cast your vote as to whether or not you think I should bring them back, I really appreciate it. As a point of reference on that, I wasn't able to figure out how to create a poll on Facebook. So it's actually just a series of photos on a post, where if you think that that item should be brought back, I want you to react to that photo. And then put a comment if you want to be put on the wait list for the item. And if I get people who want to be on a wait list, I am way more likely to reactivate them. I don't know if non-Etsy people are aware of this, but it actually costs the seller money to post listings. And if no one buys it, you're literally just spending money for nothing. Which is why old listings tend to get taken down and less popular listings get taken down, because otherwise you're just spending money on something that nobody's looking at and no one's buying. And so it's an investment that's not worth it, if that makes any sense. Granted, it's not a lot of money, but when you have a bunch of those listings, it tends to add up. Also, part of the reason I want you to go to each photo and like each individual photo is because I also put a description on each photo talking about how much each costs. And kind of a description as to what the item is. Because I have a wreath that's super cute. I'm really, really proud of it. It's very, very cute. But it costs $95 because that's what it costs. And I am very aware. I'm very aware that handmade products are expensive. But I'm also aware that the cost that I put on my products accurately depicts what the product is worth. For my time, for the products, to a point. This is a really hot point of contention as to how to price handmade items. And the vast majority of crafters, to my knowledge, especially Etsy sellers and similar creators, is that we are to price our items in a way that provides us a livable wage as creators. However, the products that I make, especially my lace, are so niche that the prices that I currently have are already way more than anyone else's. And yet I am marking mine, like they're accurately priced. If my paycheck is lower than livable wage. So I price everything based on the federal minimum wage, which is really low. But all my prices still feel really, really high to me. So it was really difficult to figure out pricing on handmade items. I have created multiple spreadsheets filled with algorithms and no, algorithms, not right. Equations, filled with equations to be able to calculate costs of my items. So when there is something on my Etsy that seems really expensive, there's a spreadsheet somewhere that explains exactly why it costs as much as it costs. On a slightly different tangent, with my summer lace series, I am making, so in order to, of course, have the photos for the listings, I have to actually create a sample of the lace. And that is helpful in many ways because, first of all, I've at least then made the lace once, not just have the pattern in theory. I can then get photos of it. I can learn the pattern really, really well. And I can learn the dimensions and the measurements and how long it takes to create the lace, which is necessary to be able to properly calculate the cost of the lace. That is the big cost in tatted lace, is payment for my time. Unfortunately, the lace for next week, I just finished it. It's gorgeous. But I forgot to time it. Like, I time like a certain amount of creation. That way I'm not timing the entire thing because that would just be really long and difficult to manage. But I time like how long it takes me to create like 5 repeats of the pattern. And then I just multiply that for however much the final lace ended up being. But I didn't find out till after I finished the sample that I forgot to time it. And I am really, really upset about it. So that's going to be one of my focuses today after the exterminator leaves this afternoon, is working on a second sample for next week's lace because I didn't time it. I feel so dumb that I didn't time it. So dumb. Okay, so I was talking about yarn barf earlier and how there's center pole and there's the outside pole. So this skein ends up being really thin, whereas the other one was really floppy and big. This one is thin. This has been an outside pole, so you'll see it flopping around as I pull on it. Like, see it flopping? That's because I'm unwinding it from the outside, like you would a ball of yarn. Most of the skeins that I'm using on this blanket are brand new. I bought them specifically for this blanket. But there are a couple colors like the white and the red I think the red. I thought the red was, but it might not be. I know the white. The white is an older yarn that I had in my stash that was just sitting around. And since white is white, and it was close enough in size and texture, and the blankets for me. I mean, I'm going to be sending Haley photos, but you were not allowed to call my friend dumb. It was a learning experience. Who did I call dumb? Did I call myself dumb? Or did I call someone else dumb? I don't remember. I'm sorry, Haley, that I missed that comment whenever you posted it. And Rebecca just asked whether it's better to center pull or outside pull. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Whatever you prefer. Oh, I called myself dumb. Thanks for standing up for me, Haley. I honestly don't remember doing it or in what context. But thanks. Maybe I should be more conscious of that. But as for whether or not to do center pull or the outside pull, it really doesn't matter. It's personal preference. If you are working with multiple like skeins of yarn like at the same time, there's lots of crocheting and knitting styles where you're working with multiple threads at the same time. In those instances, it would be way less messy to do a center pull, just because you can have each of them lined up and just pull from them, and they won't be moving around. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. It is completely personal preference. So that's why the white one was an outside pull, because it was an older skein that had outside pull. And then the newer ones are center pulls because they were new ones, and I decided to center pull this time. But it really doesn't matter. There's definitely, depending upon the project, it could be more convenient to do one over the other, but it ultimately doesn't matter. I guarantee you, so when I'm done with this stream, I'm going to go back through and maybe edit out some rough parts or like redo the beginning or something. But I'm definitely going to go back through this and be so confused at how scatterbrained I am, because one thought comes up or a comment comes up and then I completely forget what it was that I was talking about or what I was doing. So if I never actually finish a thought because I get distracted, I am so sorry. My husband is super patient with me in that regard. I'll just randomly ask him, like, did I say this thing? And he'll like, yeah, you told me about it this morning. I'm like, oh, okay. Or I'll ask him and he'll be like, oh yeah, you just said that like 2 minutes ago. And I had completely forgotten that I had actually said it out loud. I don't know if that's just me where I just forget what I've said or whether or not what I said was out loud or just in my head. It's a struggle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I don't know how many of you are on Instagram. But I've been on there now for a couple of months, and I've made over 100 posts. I now have 61 followers, which to the vast majority of you, that's going to seem like a tiny amount. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's probably going to seem like a tiny amount, but I'm really proud of where I'm at. But I am confused because it has started becoming a pattern where I will have reels, or basically shorts, on Instagram that do really well for me. For me on my account, they do really well. But when most growth on a video happens within like the first 12 to 36 hours, and then it just like drops off and no one ever sees your stuff again, which is something I'm coming to grips with. Except 2 weeks later, suddenly, I don't know if the algorithm decides to pop it back up 2 weeks later, or if someone just keeps finding my videos 2 weeks after I post them. But I've had it happen multiple times where 2 weeks after posting a video, I'll suddenly start getting views on it again, which is so strange. And I do not understand. I am 100% convinced that brain fart. I'm so sorry. I'm 100% convinced that I don't remember. Like, my brain started going in this direction and then it just disappeared. I forgot what my conviction was. That's awful. I really don't remember. Haley's had the same experience, so I'm glad I'm not the only one. I really can't remember where I was going with that thought. But like, I had one reel. This is the only reel that has gotten this many views. But I have one reel that has 16.8 thousand views on it, which is absolutely crazy to me. But it got all of those views 2 weeks after posting it. All of a sudden, it blew up over the course of 36 hours. 2 weeks after posting it, it just blew up and got thousands and thousands of views. And it was the strangest thing. What's also strange to me is the fact that this video is just like me sitting there knitting. That's it. For like 8 seconds. That's it. It's very, very strange seeing the patterns and things that people apparently like. It's weird. I don't know. I think there's something about the creation of items that is fascinating to us as humans. Like the old how it's made from like the 90s. I am fascinated by those videos. I know there are other people who are fascinated by those videos. And so I feel like that's what a lot of like the crafting Instagram videos are, is just the creation of video of, and that's what people find fascinating. So That's kind of where I've been trying to point my reels to, is these little creation bits. Unfortunately, that means that I gotta really fiddle with like the camera and getting the angle right. And because you got to get a good shot of what you're working on, and that can sometimes be really difficult. So it is 8:50. I usually do these reels for about an hour, so I'll be on for about another 10 minutes. Does anyone have any last minute questions or topics for these last 8 minutes of stream time? I hope you all have enjoyed my very first YouTube live stream. This isn't my first live stream ever. I've done quite a few Facebook live streams, quite a few Instagram live streams, though I will never do another Instagram live. But I'm hoping that YouTube will ultimately... The goal with starting this YouTube channel has been to reach a larger audience and to better facilitate the kind of content that I like to create, which is these live streams where I can just sit and chat. I'm an extroverted introvert, where I really, really like being by myself, and I really like my homebody time. I really, really like it, and I thrive on it. I thrive on being able to create my own situation. But I also work best, like I make the most progress when I feel like I'm being watched, like I'm with other people. And so being on a live stream, I am more productive because I'm not going to get distracted as much, like from my work. Like I get, the whole idea of like you have visitors coming over and your mom like goes on this mad cleaning spree, or you go on a mad cleaning spree because someone's coming over. That's kind of what it feels like for me when I am like on a live stream or have someone over, or I'm with someone while I'm working on a project, where it's like, I need to keep working. I get a lot of work done when others are watching or others are around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I don't know if that's just me, but strange thing about it is that because I'm an introvert, I get exhausted with that kind of social interaction. So when I do these live streams, I really enjoy them, but afterwards I am exhausted. Like I really like these, but I have to like sit in quiet for like a day and a half before I'm recuperated. But I can't just constantly live my life in seclusion. And so honestly, this is like exposure therapy, where I am able to practice being social while in a safe environment, if that makes any sort of sense. Where I can try and acclimate myself to being in conversations and being around other people for extended periods of time, and therefore be able to better cope when I'm in actual super social situations. And I'm able to practice different coping strategies to be able to not have anxiety and to not burn out quite as quickly. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out which of these. My color is going to be ending. And I wanted to pull the bigger of the balls of yarn right now. Sorry, I've talked about how at the end of these streams I crash and I get really tired. That's what's happening right now. I'm getting all sorts of brain foggy and tired. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to explain what it is that I'm doing with these balls of yarn right now. But I'm really glad that you guys have joined me. For those of you who are watching this in replay, I'm really glad that you watched my live stream, even after the fact. Again, for those of you who have been here on my live stream, Rebecca, Haley, anyone else who has gotten on, I really, really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate your support. It would mean a lot to me if you were to do the classic support things. Oh, shoot. Oh, the classic support things of liking, subscribing, sharing, following me on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. The reason creators always ask you to do that is because the more people that do that, the more the algorithm sees that people like that content and will share it to exponentially more people. And as a small business, the only way that I can really get word out there is to either pay for advertisements, which I do not have the budget for, or for people who like what I make and like what I do to share my content and to put it out there into the world to help me out. So that's why people always ask for that. It's because the more interaction they get, the more the algorithm sees that people like that content and will then share it to more people. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your help. Any help that you offer me by sharing and sorry, I'm trying to do that. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your love and for any questions. So 8 a.m. Central Time every Wednesday is when I'm doing these live streams. And so far, I've really liked doing it on YouTube. So hopefully I'll be able to stay on this platform and make content that you guys enjoy. If you have any questions or any ideas, please let me know. And I will see you next week. Bye.